Dear guests, thank you for being with us today. For the first GNF session of the day, we offer you a session organized by the new established Saudi Space Agency. This panel is called Science on SSA-HSF1 mission and is exploring the experiments and impact. This panel will include scientists, astronauts directly involved in this mission to discuss experiments from the perspectives of the primary investigations, astronauts executions, and student outreach. But I would like now to give a warm welcome to Dr. Balata Munsami, the Deputy CEO of SSA and moderator of this session. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning everyone, and it's indeed a pleasure to be and moderate this global networking forum. And as indicated, the topic is on the Saudi Space Agency Human Spaceflight 1 mission. I think we'll be digging deeper into the experiments that were conducted and what impact that has had. Just a few fun facts before we kick off. Something you might not know. The first Arab astronaut or space, Arab in space, is Prince Sultan bin Salman. And that happened on the NASA Discovery Shuttle on June 17, 1985. So that was a while back. We also had the first 2 Arab astronauts on the International Space Station at the same time earlier this year. And we have Astro Ali with us. Unfortunately, Astro Rayana is actually in Japan doing an outreach mission. And talking about Astro Rayana, she's also the first Arab female astronaut to the ISS. So those 3 groundbreaking facts. Okay, thank you. As you can see, it was a very successful mission, but also a very proud one for Saudi Arabia and for the world as well. I'm going to start off with Dr. Badr Shirah. He's from the Nebula Research and Development Company, and his main focus was on, he conducted 6 experiments, primarily on the nervous system. So, Dr. Shirah, can you describe the experiments that you conducted on this mission and explain why you chose them? And then also look at, some of the results and how that contributes to our understanding.
Thank you so much for your introduction, and it's really my honor and pleasure to be here with you today. The experiments we conducted involved examining the brain and nervous system in space in a way that was never done before, using novel tools and looking at the brain from the big structure level up to the molecular level. The experiments involved looking at the brain structure and blood flow using functional near-infrared spectroscopy, which is a device sent for the first time to space. Another experiment involved looking at the brain electrical activity using portable EEG system that is flown for the first time to space. Also, we sent another novel tool, which is the automated pupillometer, that is examining the pupils of the eye and providing the characteristics of pupillary light reflex in microgravity, and it's also flown for the first time. And we correlated that with a well-known methodology used in space for a long time, which is the optic nerve ultrasound. We also examined the biomarkers obtained from that is looked at in biological samples obtained from astronauts. The experiments involved collecting data and samples before flight, so to have a baseline before exposure to microgravity. And then the second part is done in microgravity to see the effects of space flight and effect of microgravity and radiation. And the third part is done post-flight to document recovery and return to baseline. So this is an overview of the experiments. Now, these experiments actually provide novel data and novel information about the effects of space travel on the human brain, which is essential if humans want to survive on the moon, Mars, and beyond. And it's essential for long-term human presence in space. So these experiments are novel and unique in that aspect. The results are still under processing, but from the preliminary result, I can tell you that all devices are showing important data that is provided for the first time to the world. And once we publish this data, that will be a scientific contribution on which future research is built upon.
Okay, thank you for that. Ahmed, come back to Dr. Badr, Shirah. So I know it's quite early days, but has there been any impact on from the experiment itself in the profession? And maybe what's next, if there's a follow-up mission? Any plans for that?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. So the impact is huge from these experiments. Number one is these experiments will show us the results or the effects of microgravity and radiation on the brain in a way that was not done before, which will constitute the scientific base on which future research is built, which is very important. So this is one scientific impact that's very important. The other one is that these experiments encourage the scientific community in Saudi Arabia to consider space as a research platform. I actually had many people reach out and want to conduct the research in space and say, how did you do it? And what are the potential ways of doing research in space? And now we have a grant opportunity that is currently underway in the country, and many people are applying to conduct the research in space. So you can see that these experiments had a significant impact, reaching out to all the scientific community in Saudi Arabia. And I believe in the future, medical research is going to be highly needed, especially if we want to go to the moon, Mars, asteroids, and beyond. So conducting this research and being involved in such research from the beginning is very important. What's next for us is actually many of the devices we flew for the first time need to be flown again in longer duration missions because we've proven them to be successful. I cannot reveal too many results, but the results are very impressive, and these devices have significant potential for many future research in space. And also the samples we got, when integrated with samples from different astronauts over different durations and different missions, that will give us a better understanding of the effects of microgravity on the human body. And so this is one of the future directions. What's next is sending these devices and collecting samples from future astronauts going to space in future missions over longer periods.
Okay, thank you for that.
For the interesting discussion. I just wanted to ask Dr. Badr, Dr. Khalid, and Dr. Wajdan, what's next for microgravity research or space science research in Saudi Arabia? Thank you.
Dr. Badr, what's next?
So what's next, as I said, these experiments lay the foundation for many future research to be done in Saudi Arabia. So what's next is going to be many research experiments flying from Saudi Arabia, sending samples for passive exposure to microgravity and then coming back. So this is one avenue that you will see a lot of in the future. Another thing is doing research on astronaut subjects, whether in very short duration low Earth orbit travels or short duration ISS missions or longer duration missions to the ISS. And then after that, Saudi Arabia is now part of the Artemis Accord, so you may in the future see some of the Saudi science flying on the Artemis mission for cislunar science. And all of this tells you that in the future you'll see a lot of scientific contributions coming from Saudi Arabia now that this mission achieved its objectives and inspired the scientific community in Saudi Arabia.
Dr. Wajdan, the same question. Thank my panelists in terms of sharing the experiments that you've done, the experiences, the emotions, and also the outreach as well. So thank you. So I'd like to close off the session. Thank you.